Hi everyone, I'm Dina with Mills Family Gardening. We live in North Texas, Zone 8A, and welcome to our channel. In this video, we are going to grow asparagus from seed to harvest. Growing asparagus from seed might sound intimidating, but in reality, it's very simple. You pretty much grow it as any other vegetable from seed. You just need a little more patience to wait for it to harvest. These are asparagus seeds, and I'm just going to sprinkle the top layer of the soil with water from the spray bottle just to make sure that it's very moist. I'm going to make little holes about 1/4 of an inch deep because the seeds aren't very large. And I'm using organic potting mix by the big brand that everybody knows, I'm sure. So now I'm going to take about 3 seeds and put them in each hole, just to make sure that at least one seed germinates. I know a lot of gardeners like to use seed starring mix. It's more fine and probably more suitable for finer seeds. But since our seeds are not that small, I just went ahead and used organic potting soil. I like it better because it's going to feed the seedlings all the way until I plant them into the ground. I'm planting the seeds about 8 weeks before our average last frost day. That way, by the time it warms up outside, they'll be big and strong enough to be transplanted. All I'm gonna do now is just cover them with the soil, just like that. And then I'm going to keep them in a spot that's warm. Ideally, that would be a heating mat. But since my only heating mat is occupied, I'm just going to put them on top of the fridge, and I'm going to make sure that the soil stays moist at all times. So I'll have to spray them additionally with some water from the spray bottle like that. Or I can simply pour the water right into this little box, and then the water will be soaked up by the soil from the bottom. It's been 2 weeks since we started our asparagus from seed, and you can see the seedlings have gotten taller, and there are several of them in each cell, so they're getting crowded. And I don't want the seedlings to be root bound, so I'm going to take them out of the tray and we're going to transplant them into larger containers. So I'm going to separate the soil from the walls with a butter knife, like so, carefully, not to damage the roots. And then I'm not going to pull by the seedlings because they're very thin right now. So I'm just going to push it up with a knife, and we can see the roots. They look good and healthy. And I'm going to plant the seedlings at the height they were in their seedling tray. So I'm going to fill it up about halfway. And then I'll take the seedlings and I'm gonna put them in the pot like this. I'm not going to bury them too deeply. Put the soil all around them. And then I'll push the soil around so that the roots would be in contact with the soil. We don't want any air pockets between the roots. And I'm going to be very careful and gentle with the seedlings because they're so thin right now, I can break them off. So this looks good to me. And now I'm going to water the seedlings, and the water will help the soil settle around the roots better, and that way the air pockets would be eliminated. And I'm going to do that with the other 3 seedlings. I can see that the 3 other seedlings are still pretty young, like this one and these 2. So I'm going to keep them in the cell tray. They're going to keep growing and their roots will grow bigger and stronger. And then I'll plant them in larger containers. But today I'm going to transplant these 2 seedlings that already look pretty crowded in there, and we'll come back when they grow taller. Today is April 30th. This whole time our asparagus seedlings have been sitting in a spot that gets morning sun and then afternoon shade, so they've hardened off pretty well. So this whole area used to be grass, and we just removed the top layer of the grass with a shovel and mixed the soil with some mushroom compost and cow manure, since our soil is mostly clay. I'm going to space these asparagus seedlings about 1 foot away from each other. It doesn't have to be too precise. Since this asparagus will be growing here for the next 10 to 20 years, it's important to prepare the soil from the start, because I'm not going to be coming back, digging up the plants and improving the soil. I made sure to improve the soil from the beginning. I also put some Trifecta Plus fertilizer, but when we're going to plant our seedlings, I'm going to add additional all-purpose fertilizer on the bottom of the hole. So I'm just gonna dig the hole slightly deeper than the small container. I also put some kitchen scraps on the side of this garden bed just to improve the soil. So I'm going to put a little bit of the all-purpose fertilizer on the bottom of the hole, mix it with the soil, and then add a little more, Then I'm going to plant this asparagus seedling at the same depth it is in this little container right now. And the root system looks very healthy. It's not root bound. It's perfect time to plant it into the soil. And I'm simply going to move the soil back around the seedling. I'm going to make sure to tuck the soil in well to try to remove all the air pockets. And after I plant all the seedlings this way, I'm going to make sure to water it well because the water will help eliminate air pockets also. Today is May 13th. After we planted our asparagus in the ground, we started getting lots of rain, and all that rain encouraged new shoots to start growing. So now we have way more branches of asparagus poking from the ground, and they're looking healthy. Today is October 15th, and our asparagus is growing well. You can notice that asparagus on this side actually looks larger than the asparagus on that side. And I think asparagus on this side possibly got chewed by grasshoppers. They're really bad this time of the year. And asparagus on this side is growing some nice and thick spears, which is really good. I need to remove this weed here. And now is the perfect time to talk about male asparagus and female asparagus. Some people prefer to keep only male asparagus because they produce larger and stronger stalks. And they prefer to remove female asparagus because they're not as strong. It's really up to you what you want to do with your asparagus. Some people keep female asparagus just so that they can collect more seeds and plant them in the future or share with their friends. Male asparagus flowers have these yellow stamens that you can see inside. Those stamens don't produce any seeds. And a female flower will have a green ovary and a white pistil inside of it. Let me open one female flower and show you the ovary. So here is the green ovary with a pistil, and later in the season, this will become a red seed. Today is January 28th, 2024, and this is what our asparagus looks like today. The stalks have yellowed, and this is normal for asparagus. And this is the perfect time when asparagus needs to be pruned. But before I prune it, I would like to point out how important it is to plant asparagus in full sun. You will notice that the stalks on this side, they are pretty thick, but if you look on that side, this is the side that doesn't get as much sun in the winter as the other side, and you can see that the plants are not as thick, they're much thinner. So it's very important to plant asparagus in a place that gets full sun all day. It's very simple to prune asparagus. You simply prune the stalks or plants down to the level of the ground, just like that. And after you prune it all, you can mulch it to prevent the weeds from growing. And then leave it alone and let new asparagus come in the spring. Today is February 25th, and our asparagus started growing new shoots. You can see that this one is very thick, very strong, but the ones on the other side of this in-ground bed are much thinner. And again, that's because of the sun positioning. You can see that asparagus on that side is getting more sun than asparagus on this side. But it's okay. Eventually the sun will be going up higher, and this side of the bed will be getting more sun, and asparagus will be stronger. But I wanted to point out that it's been 1 year since we planted this asparagus, and it's not ready to be harvested yet. We're going to leave the stalks here, and they will keep growing. All these little shoots will turn into leaves, and then asparagus will be getting the energy from the sun and strengthening the roots. And that's what we need. We need the roots to get stronger for now. But in 3 years after planting, our asparagus will look like this. This is our more mature in-ground bed. And you can see that we already have new spears growing, and this one is ready to be harvested. So we harvested pretty close to the ground. I actually need to fertilize our mature asparagus, and I usually use all-purpose organic granular fertilizer. I simply sprinkle it and water with a hose, and all the fertilizer goes down. I normally wait longer before I harvest asparagus. I let them grow taller because that way I can harvest longer spears, and that will be more food for us to eat. And that way they're also more tender. And then the same cycle repeats every January or February. I cut down the dead limbs and fertilize the asparagus patch. And in about February, March, or April, depending on the weather, new shoots start growing. And that's how we grow asparagus. It's one of the easiest and most convenient vegetables to grow if you're patient enough. Thank you so much for watching this video, and happy gardening.